is very different, right? So.
Do you see equal opportunities for organizations regardless of their size? Is there a proportional? I mean, is it kind of do small and medium-sized companies get the same bang for the buck that a big one does, or is there a point where a company says, okay, I'm missing the boat, I need to get on board, or?
Yeah. So they are knowledgeable about the fact that there's a boat passing along. Only many companies can't find it.
Okay.
Right? As for equal opportunity or same impact, no, the impacts are very different. But you're also talking about different types of usages. If you and by the way, that doesn't just depend on the size of the company, but also on what the company is actually doing. Right? Is it an industrial process? Is it a service company? Is it a software company? What are we talking about? So the what you're expecting from AI is extremely different, and the investments that you need to make depend on that. However, if you are working in a context in which numbers are important, in which you have a huge amount of data that you need to crunch, that essentially means that you need to make big investments. It's not just a ChatGPT license that we're talking about. So you need to make big investments in machine learning and bringing things up to speed internally, and many smaller companies just can't do that.
Yeah. The reason I'm asking kind of these strategic level questions is because the topic that we're kind of leading into is, user preparation skills that matter. We have kind of this background where we're often upskilling maybe middle management. Maybe the range goes from team leaders to maybe senior management. But from my experience with some of the clients that I have, I often find that the level the level that needs as much upskilling as everybody else is the top level. Is that your experience as well?
Oh yeah, for sure. And by the way, the top level is often, not always, but often also the older level. And so then there tends to be a certain resistance towards, it's going to be okay, right? We're going to somehow deal with it. We've dealt with other stuff. Come on, it can't be worse than the financial crisis. And so somehow there's this attitude that lets things go by, which is not true for everybody. There's a lot of people also in small and medium companies that know perfectly well that they should be on the boat, and they are actively working to learn to bring themselves to a point in which they can actually make investments. But finding the right partners, finding the right knowledge, actually having a clear idea of what am I actually supposed to do? What opportunities could this bring to me? Can it just summarize my emails, or could it actually fast forward my production processes? So the approach that there is one of a lot of question marks, and it's not that easy to answer them.
Maybe we can revisit this question in a more structured fashion, because like I said, we're trying to also give our listeners and viewers kind of maybe some ideas of, hey, if I'm in this situation, where do I start off? And you've been in situations like this. Let's say you have a medium-sized company, I don't know, in France or in Italy, that comes to you and say, listen, Max, I want you to help us with AI. We have kind of a rudimentary understanding, but we don't know where, why, what. I will say this as a precursor. I'm sure you're familiar with it. We talked about the MIT report that came out a while back, where I think the numbers, don't kill me if I get the numbers wrong, but I think they were talking about that in the market, $500 billion has been invested in AI, and only 5% of companies claim to have gotten a return of investment, which is kind of a dismal report, okay? On the other side, I think we all...
Unless that $5 trillion was invested by the same 5%.
Yeah, I think the statement was it's across the board and only 5%, and I think there's even you have to discount some of those 5% that say, at what level they're getting a return of investment, and if it's proportional. And actually, this was a question that I've asked a couple people already. Maybe I'll ask you before we get to the process of how a medium-sized company should go about it. I've actually, thought about this, and I said, the Ralph Stacey matrix.
No.
The Ralph Stacey matrix is a fairly simple graphic that kind of explains the difference between simple, complicated, complex, and chaotic, right? And it says, can you define what you want, and do you know how to do it? And if you don't know what you want, and you don't know how to do it, it's called house of pain, right? And that's kind of the place the chaotic area, right? And then once you get when you move it a little bit further in and it becomes complex, then you use like agile and hybrid versions. And all. It's kind of it's an interesting model. Yeah. But what I love most about this graphic is this.
Except that, of course, it ends up with saying, you should use predictive project management when you're down at the bottom left corner, which makes absolutely
Actually, it's
no
line
sense.
management that you use down here. It's funny because this is day-to-day line structure, but this is actually the biggest box and not this right here. But anyways, let's talk about this house of pain because I've always been fascinated with this, and this leads to my question.